Hello, good morning. We're going to start supine today. For practice today, just a smooth surface that you can slide on. So if you're on carpet, that will probably work. You could lay a blanket down as a barrier between you and carpet, or a hard floor, smooth surface. If it feels too hard or maybe not slidey, use a blanket. And starting on your back, either with legs bent and feet on floor, or you could take straight legs. And simply allow the weight of your body to land allowing yourself to arrive and feel the presence of body-mind. So I come from the paradigm that the body and mind are not separate or connected simply, but they are absolutely the same. So body-mind is here doing its thing. All the cellular components in communication with each other. All the cells in communication, and what they're talking about is your health, your state of health, your state of being. So see if you can bring the energy of awareness into that dynamic. And so if we bring the energy of awareness into the body-mind complex, then it's like awareness holds body and mind. Body holds mind and awareness. Mind holds body and awareness. And so this sacred triune is really one yog. It's one yoked entity. Body, mind, and awareness. See if you can wakefully rest there. So resting there with wakeful attentiveness, wakeful loving attentiveness, and simply breathe here for a few rounds of breath, and maybe laying hands on your body, belly, heart, or both hands on belly, or some way to connect the felt sense of your own palms, the cellular intelligence of your own hands, touching the cellular intelligence of your skin, through your clothes, maybe your organs, through your skin and bones and muscles. And you could visualize, you could actively bless or offer blessings for your well-being, for your capacity to sustain presence, for your ability to meet the moment just as it is and not overlaying the attitude of it should or shouldn't be this way. But dropping into the down on the ground reality of it is this way. And letting that down on the ground, honest, naked facing of reality inspire you to take good care, to do right for you and to do right for others. From here, take a full body stretch. Arms long, you can stretch legs long if your knees were bent. And arms out to the side. Keep upper arms out to the side. Go ahead, bend knees. feet on floor. And with an exhale, if you can feel the back of your sacrum, feel where the sacrum meets the floor, start to roll towards the top of your sacrum, pressing eventually low lumbar vertebra and then the full lumbar into the floor, curling tail to sky. Big exhale. And then inhale, unfurl, rolling on the sacrum towards the tail, lifting all those lumbar vertebrae. And then as if the tail, sacrum is like a lacrosse net, catching the ball and slinging the ball in slow motion back up to the navel. Press lumbar down and then like rolling that imaginary lacrosse ball from navel to tail. And the little hook scoop of the tail, roll the ball back towards your navel. One or two more. Your movement could be big, I'm making mine pretty big, or real small, depending on what you feel. So stay with that holy yoga, that holy yoking of body-mind awareness, and respond to what you feel. And let this next breath land you in stillness. Bend the elbows so the forearms are making like field goal post shape, arms still on floor. And then exhale, orbiting those forearms around towards your face. Bring the outer forearms together like old school Madonna Vogue arms. Curl your fingers into your palms, making two fists, and then dive those two fists towards the floor overhead, like you're punching the floor behind you in slow motion. And then inhale, open the elbows. Exhale, drag those bent elbows along the floor, down by your sides. Squeeze them into your sides and straighten the elbows down towards your, arms down towards your feet. And then with arms reaching down towards your feet, side bend right, reach towards right foot, then side bend left, reach towards left foot, and then to the right again, left again. Let the reach of the arms, one at a time, down towards the feet, pull you in this side-to-side movement. And don't just hang out in the same old vertebra. Bring the side-to-side movement higher, lower. Find uncharted waters, which might be indicated by a real clear signpost. It's a muscle cramp. That's uncharted waters typically. Last time, reaching down to the right. Reach down to the left. And then back to center, arms out to the side. Bend the elbows, arms still on floor. Then again, wrap forearms around to the face. Curl fingers into fists, slow-mo, punching the floor overhead. Don't let the lumbar pop up. If you can keep it neutral, that's best. And then unfurl the elbows out to the side. As you adduct the arms, squeeze them down by your sides. Straighten the elbows. Reach for your feet. And then right and left a couple more times. Last time left, back to the center. Arms out to the side again. Make the field goal post arms pause there. Curl your fingers into fists. So much so that the knuckles curl towards ceiling. And can you press the backs of the wrists into the floor? I call this the Bowser from Sha-Na-Na. Remember that? If you're over 40, maybe you do. And then can you keep the backs of the wrists on the floor, knuckles curled towards ceiling, but kick the elbows to the ceiling? So I find this action really elusive to a lot of people. The backs of the wrists on the floor is never taken seriously. It's a strong suggestion if you can find it. And if you do a lot of chaturangas in plank poses, you might be like, I can't find this move. It's in there. It's like the anti-venom to chaturanga and the dandasana, the Adho Mukha Dandasana. If you kick the elbows up, keep them up, you might get some quivering, some chattering, some quaking around the side ribs, back of the armpit. In theory, it's good to knit up the backs of those shoulders and strengthen the serratus muscle. Keep it going on, 1 or 2 more breaths. And let this pull you right into beady ball on your back. So before you move, exhale, lift the heels, drop the navel, and then pull it all in together. Do that thing with your feet I've been talking about for weeks. Curl the knuckles towards your face as the toes curl towards the heels. Hug everything in, and then when you're ready, full body stretch. Long arms, long legs, and while you're here, you could stay reaching symmetrically through all 6 limbs above and all 6 limbs below. 2 arms and a head and 2 legs and a tail, or you can alternate. Right side goes longer, baby side bend of the spine to the left. Left side goes longer, baby side bend of the spine to the right. Oh, sound effects are optional. I wish I could hear yours. And then pause in neutral, whatever that feels like for you. If neutral feels like hugging your knees in, or if neutral feels like you need to do a back bend, how do you find neutral? How do you feel neutralized in your bones, in your muscles, in your body-mind complex? And often it's the case, often, not always, but by simply bringing awareness, that holy triune, simply by bringing awareness to the body-mind complex, it can be neutralizing. Bend your knees, feet on floor. Arms do as they do, just out to the side is probably fine. Now this movement is going to go more towards the ceiling, 1 hip at a time. So can you push the right foot into the floor and hike the right hip up to the ceiling? And then release that. And then do the left side. So we're going to go right to left. Basically dropping alternate sacroiliac joints. Dropping right one, dropping left one. Dropping right, dropping left. Real slow. But in addition to that, the lifting side is getting really engaged. So hamstring turns on, some of those glutes turn on, some of that lumbar spine muscle turns on. We're going to add on. So next time, right butt cheek lifts, shrug right shoulder down towards it. It's going to pull the head probably. And then release the shoulder, release the butt cheek, left butt cheek hikes up, tuck and squeeze and drag left shoulder down. And if you feel like, I'm going right to left now, if you feel like one side needs more, do several on that side. Stay to one side if that's your call. All right, I'm going to spend more time on my left now that I've got a better picture. So we're going to add a third step. So lift butt cheek, shrug shoulder down, and then squeeze knees together. And then let it go. And go again. Lift butt cheeks, shrug shoulder down, squeeze knees. The knees are a little offset, right? Because your hips are offset. Makes sense to me. And then as you do these 3 movements, we've been layering them in, hiking up butt cheek, shrugging shoulder blade down, squeezing knees. What about all 3 together? Can you sync them up? Can you sync up the completion of the knee squeeze, the butt cheek lift, and the shoulder shrug so they all land in their final moment at the same time? Let's do 2 more just like this on each side, or maybe you do 4 more on one side, or 3 on one and 1 on the other side. And we're gonna add something on. So I'm on my 3rd one. Last one. Pause. You could straighten legs or let knees knock together, or baby ball or full body stretch, or whatever is needed. And so you might get a visual for this final step for this sequence. Starts the same, butt cheek lift, shoulder shrug down, knee squeeze. But then we float the hips up in this sort of asymmetrical, cockeyed kind of way. Bring the lower hip up to meet the elevated hip. And then swing the pelvis so the elevated hip lands first. And then back to neutral. So I'll do my other side, I'll say right, left. Hiking up left, tugging left shoulder down, squeezing knees together. Floating up the whole pelvis and orbiting the right hip up and over the left so the left hip drops. And then I can simply side bend the other way, tugging shoulder down, and keep the knee squeeze and float the pelvis up and over. Right butt cheek is down, and then I side bend the other way. So it becomes a sort of continuous floating hips up and over, like the pelvis is sliding up and over a hill, and syncing up the side bend movement with it. This is revealing to me not only asymmetries in my lumbar, but also the byproduct of that, or maybe the reason for that, some asymmetry in my upper chest and front shoulder muscles that's being revealed by this tilting of the torso. A couple more right and left. I'm going to do my last one to the left. And then you decide how you want to neutralize, either baby ball or stretch long or just rest or some other movement that makes you feel neutral. How do you feel neutral? And we'll eventually meet laying on one side. Laying on one side. I'm going to lay on my right side. Right arm is a pillow, or thread the right arm in front of you and put a prop, blanket, block, actual pillow under your head. And then with the 2 knees and hips stacked, we're going to focus on the top leg hip. And simply sliding that knee hip forward so it offsets top knee forward. Just let your top arm rest on your side body. And then shrug or slide or suction that top leg hip back. And then forward. It's the same movement we were just doing supine. But the pull of gravity is different. So the ask of our muscles is different. And going, not only will one side, right side, left side feel better, more important, but going in one direction, this back, like you could say retracting that hip, might feel more important than sending the knee hip forward. So lean into what you need, and the awareness piece will likely reveal clearly the messages from the body-mind complex. Adding on here, if you bring that top arm sort of around behind your head so you can cradle the head in that top hand, like I've got my hand all the way around to my ear. And then next time the top knee goes forward, invite the torso back. Nice and easy. And then you'll come forward again with the torso and back with the hip. So it's a tiny twist as the torso goes forward and the hip goes back, and a much bigger twist as the torso goes back and the hip goes forward. Support your head with your hand. The upper body, shoulder, arm does not have to go to the floor, and it likely won't for many people. At least not right away. It might eventually. Right, and then here again, where do you put the twist? Can you spread the twist? The rotating action of the vertebra throughout the whole spine, from tail to cranium, or are you just cranking on like 2 or 3 or 4 vertebrae? Guess which one I vote for? I vote for the spreading of the action far and wide. A little bit of movement in a lot of places. And it will maybe, hopefully, become clear to you. If you have a lot of movement in just a few places, those are probably the ones that are crabby at you. Or the places right next to it might be crabby. And so can you spread it out? So treat all of this like a puzzle. All of the movements I'm asking you to do are totally natural, available to a healthy, integrated body. And if you're like, I can't, then figure out what's an easy, gentle way to approach the movement. Pause. In the middle, if you're ready. I'm ready. Keep going if you want to keep going. I'm just going to pause on my side. We're going to do left side, one more, or this side, one more move, and then we'll flip. And do the other side. So if you're ready for another movement, upper arm takes the same position. Legs are stacked. This is going to be a pure side body movement now, not going forward and backward. So it's an internal rotation of the leg, which if you keep the legs together, that'll kick the outer foot of the top leg to the ceiling. So give that a few rounds, right? And there's a way I can do it just so the leg moves, or I can go much further. The whole pelvic half moves, side body moves. So this is yours to calibrate. We're going to add the head, pick the head up with the hand, and sort of dive elbow towards outer hip. And then when you land, lift the underside. So like tiny counter pose infused into the movement. So side bend towards the upper side. Use your head manually, pick up the head rather. And then as you land, press the head and the outer hip on the floor into the ground. Squeeze the underside. You can feed the breath in whatever way feels helpful. Whether you inhale here or exhale here. And you decide when you've had enough. Don't forget the squeeze of the underside when you're down. Squeeze of the upper side is obvious. Perhaps. Hopefully it's obvious. Oh, okay. And how you want to transition if you're ready. I'm going to spill onto my belly. Stack my two hands. You could do Sphinx pose. You could roll onto your back. You could baby ball. You could cat cow. You could just flop like a floppy fish or settle like raindrops. And notice, maybe you already did, the big difference between the two sides. My upper side, former upper side, the left side, feels really sort of solid and firm, and the right side feels a little melty. Doesn't have to be your experience. Just telling you what mine is. Other side. So side lying. Bottom arm as a pillow. Or free that arm and use something else for a pillow. Top side arm just laying on your bod, knees bent, stacked. Top side hip leg slides forward and then back. And then forward and then back. And so when you slide back, if it feels like that top leg knee needs to lift up, abduct, you could honor that. You could also try to minimize that. It really depends on what you feel. I've mentioned before in these videos that only place in my body I have any real sort of challenge / injury / dysfunction that I'm aware of is my hips. And so sometimes this movement, depending on which hip is on top, can be a puzzle. Like I'll get movement that's not real smooth and slidey. So I have to create resistance or tension in other places to find the slide. So just offering suggestions around how to work with the challenges of the movement. Stay with it. Make it smaller. Add a little nuance. Let's catch the upper arm behind the head. So wrap the arm, hand all the way around so you can touch your opposite ear. And then as the top knee goes forward, roll the upper body back. And then as you bring the upper body up and forward, suction the hip and knee back. So creating these little twists. It's a much deeper twist when you go back with the upper body and forward with the knee. And a much smaller twist when you go back with the hip and forward with the upper body. So if you have SI dysfunction, it might be really clear that one part of one side of the movement is more important. Please feel free to customize, right? Customize the movement as it should be anyways. Never in yoga, never in somatics, never in any kind of physical practice embedded in awareness and self-discovery should we all ever look alike. That's just idiotic. And so these really simplified, like biomechanic kind of things really fall short to offer people information about their own nuanced bones and shapes and sockets and pockets and connections. And that's really our work to do alone with the help of a good teacher. And this is not the medium for that. Okay, if you're ready, back to side lying. If you're ready, I'm going to just pause here, rest my upper arm, stop the movement. Oh, I feel melty. I feel like warm pudding. Yum. Side bending. So head cradled by the upper hand again. Let's start with the internal rotation of the upper leg. So you kick that outer foot to the sky. And again, you could isolate it to the leg or bring it all the way up into the hip and side waist. Make sure you don't wrap forward when you do it. Pure side, pure side. And then adding the head. Upper elbow dives towards outer hip. And then when you land, lift the underside. And then squeeze the upper side. And when you land, lift the lower side. Where you put the pressure on the floor, especially lifting the underside, you can direct the engagement, the contraction of the underside waist by where you press into the floor. If you press more with the elbow or more with the shoulder or more with the back edge of the outer thigh bone or the front edge of the outer thigh, like, can you feel that you have, I want to say infinite options, although it's probably not infinite. There's probably a set number, but too high to count. All right, I'm undoing, I'm stopping. I'm going onto my belly. If you need to go onto your back, go for it. If you need a child's pose, go for it. I'm checking our time. Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good. Just pause. Sphinx pose. Sphinx pose is next. If your back feels like it needs something else, I recommend child's pose maybe. But we're going now into the yin portion. And at this point, if you wanted to say namaste, you sure could. Or go back to any of the previous stuff, movements. If you're with me in Sphinx, I invite you to bring your forearms up. I'm actually going to go sideways here. Bring your forearms up, and I got hands in prayer, like namaste hands, and either sort of supporting chin on thumbs and maybe index fingers in the eyeball sockets, upper corner, end of your bladder line, or just put your thumb tips there. What I'd like in general is to have the face tipped a little bit down so that we have a greater opportunity to gather up the front. Deep front, wide back, as maybe you've heard me say before. So with 2 elbows on the floor, a pubic bone on the floor, let that be like a holy trinity here, diving down. Not super hard, just some pressure to feel, right? And then like you can let it go and then turn it back on again, feeling the gathering of your deep abdomen. Deep, not just hardening your surface belly muscles. Maybe you can call the deep pelvic floor muscles online, the deep ones that are all the way up into the pelvis. Gather them, lift and draw energetically into your center. And can you keep that? Keep that lift. Like for me in my low belly, epic energetic updraft. And then draw it up towards like back of heart. I'm putting my forearms back on the floor now. Draw it up to like back of throat, your molars, like let the upper molars ascend. So it's not taking the back of the head back, but rather taking the back of your throat up. Arms are pushing down. So it's like you've made a tunnel from back body around to the sides, deep in the front, and you're aiming the end of that tunnel, like say the roof of the mouth or the back of your throat, upwards, upwards. Now, some of you who love front body opening, back body gathering, I know not everyone loves it, and you might be done. You might be like, goodbye. You could come to your belly and pause and rest and be done with it, or bending the knees and like aiming the toe tips towards the back of your neck, back of your head, and you're still shooting that hollow, deeply engaged torso tunnel up to ceiling. Got some yang in the hamstrings now, got some yang in the deep glutes now, yang in the feet now, but front body is lifted and quiet. 1 or 2 more breaths. Using an exhale, you can lower down and lay on your belly. I'm going to pull myself into child's pose. Knees right together. If you were in child's pose that whole time, maybe come to sit. Or do a Sphinx pose. In your child's pose, in theory, legs are together if you can work it out. I've got my arms back by my side, but if your hips are way up in the air and all the weight is falling towards your head, you can push the hands into the floor in front of you and send the weight back to the hips. Some people need that. And then from here, if you're ready, let the knees start to go wide. Let the knees start to widen in your child's pose. You could stay with knees together if that feels better for you. But a little wide kneed child's pose here. I'm going to get a little closer. And then slowly, and I'd like to take a good 5 minutes maybe to get to where we're going. So if you let your hips, if your knees are wide and you let your hips fall to the left, sort of offsetting the knees here, offsetting the feet. Some people call this a Z seat because your legs, I guess, make a Z shape, maybe. Or it's like the seed of a pigeon pose. So keeping left knee sort of tucked under you as it is, the right leg, like a feeler or a probe, will start to reach back. And I'm going to start slow. In fact, slow enough that I'm going to unbend my front knee some. All my weight's on my left hip. I got no weight on this right leg, back leg. It's just landed on the floor. So I'm going to use the weight on my front leg hip to get a different angle in my knee before I straighten the back leg. If you're a big happy pigeon doer, then do your big happy pigeon. This is one that I need to sort of serenade myself into. I need to seduce myself into it, maybe. Be very sensual, feel into the quality of the tension or the tightness. Feel into the quality of the compression or the shortening. And make sure that it's digestible, even if it's edgy, probably edgy, but digestible for sure. That you're not resisting You're not resisting yourself. You're not resisting your life. You're not resisting. So this notion that something should or shouldn't be a certain way, my teacher said just last night, she's like, that's attitude. That's an attitude towards something. It's not a fact. It's not meaning the down on the ground reality. So the thought that your hips should be a certain way or shouldn't be a certain way. Should and shouldn't aren't opposite of each other. They're both attitudes, the way she would describe it. What's opposite of should and shouldn't is what is. I'm deepening now, reaching through the back leg, meaning I'm going to bend my front knee more. Still my weight's on my left hip mostly, but I'm internally rotating back leg now, trying to get onto the top of the foot. And the more straightening I can get through that leg, then eventually I bring my hips up and over. And so all my weight now squared through my two hips. You might support the front leg hip if it's off the floor. Mine is off the floor now, but it doesn't feel too intense. Generally speaking, you're looking for sensations that are slow and low, slow and low, like a deep, dull ache that slowly builds and will intensify. And it covers a fairly broad area of your anatomy. So in yin yoga, yin styles, we're staying interactive. This is not a passive practice. Very interactive, but slow. And so none of the movement is sharp or surprising. Right, that happens when we go fast. When we go fast, we're usually using what we already know. Stuff that's been established, trusted in a certain way, and it limits our view. Nothing wrong with going fast. Fast is a good quality to have. We need speed at certain times. But doing it at the exclusion and denial of slow and soft is, it's blind, it's limited, it's conditioned. I'm going to bring my torso up. You can certainly stay down over the leg. And we're going to give this another minute, just like this, however you are, or make a change. Now would be the time if you want to deepen or change it. And when I'm in these long, hip extended, back leg hip is in extension, I like to lengthen the exhales. You know, they say back bends are inhale poses. Yeah, that's debatable. The psoas muscle relaxes when you exhale. And the psoas muscle is being asked to lengthen in back bends that include hip extension. And to relax a lengthening muscle, especially one as deep and hard to access consciously as the psoas is, I find this incredibly satisfying and balancing for my body. If you came up into the back bend, can you recall some of that Sphinx work to gather the deep front, invite it back deepen the deep front. And once you've established that depth of connection, reach the top of the head up. Float the upper molars up. Let the tonsils go up like they're tethered to helium balloons. Front of lungs, mid lungs, back of lungs go up along the inside of your ribs. Okay, to come out, I'm going to lower down. I'm going to slide my front leg out and let it pour me onto my back. In no special kind of shape whatsoever. Just melting. Make a shape if you want. Do movement if you want. And when you're ready, however you want to get to side 2 is up to you. Let's start with a wide-kneed child's pose. And then let the weight of the body and the hips tip to, I'm going to the right. So right bum on the floor, knees are offset. You could have your left leg forward, your second leg, right? So we have a front leg now. I'm going to unbend that knee some for myself to get to a different place in my hip. My back knee is still quite bent. It's still pulled way up, and my back knee is still externally rotated. Both legs are here. And so the front knee in pigeon, I remember back in the day, in the 90s, where the silly ubiquitous cue was parallel your your chin to the top of your mat. And it took, I don't know, maybe 5 years for people to realize that was blowing out people's knees, and that was a stupid, although well-meaning, cue to give to everyone. For some people, totally appropriate. So the short story is, all of those knee positions are valid if your hips are shaped for that kind of thing. And when the hips aren't shaped for that kind of thing, the knee takes the brunt of it. But if we can keep the knee safe, like now with all this weight on the outer hip of the front leg, then the knee in theory is going to take less brunt because we got weight on the hip. So when the knee is more open, this is more like foot behind the head family. When that front knee is more closed or flexed, which I'm going there now, then it's more like cow face pose family, especially if the knee is not way out to the side. If the knee is out to the side, then it's more like lotus pose family, right? So these are all valuable positions to have the knee and hip in. It just depends on what the rest of the body is doing. So leave no stone unturned. I'm stretching my back leg long, working on internal rotation of the back leg. And eventually I'm going to use that to pull my weight up and over. So now this is where the knee gets vulnerable, which is why mine is fully flexed. My knee is fully flexed. You decide how much extension or flexion you want in your front knee. If your weight's all the way squarely on the two hips. If not, then, you have probably a few more choices to make if you're still tipped to the side. It's all valid. It's all fuel for the journey. And the journey is the constant placing of awareness in this body-mind complex and just checking in with, where's my center of gravity now? My energetic center of gravity. How am I meeting this moment? Am I meeting it with attitude about how it should or shouldn't be? Or am I meeting it with down on the ground, bare, naked acceptance of what is, what's here now? And so you include resistance, you include attitude if it's here, but don't wear it like a lens. Don't wear it like a filter. I'm bringing my torso up, mostly so I can see our timing. Oh yeah. Another couple of minutes here. Any hardening of the eyes or clenching of the teeth or clenching of the fists or the feet or the butt cheeks, these are all signs of resistance, right? Some pushing back on your reality. My teacher says we need to be devotees to reality. Not fighting it, not wishing it was different, not trying to control it, not collapsing under its weight, but bowing ever deeper to how things are, and that brings power. That brings power of acceptance. That brings power to ask the question, how can I be of service? Enabling us to meet more skillfully the moment just as it is. As you're ready, spill out of the pose in whatever way you can. And then I invite you to either, if you're on your back, hug your knees in, or if you're sitting still, child's pose. I'm going to hug my knees in. You could do a forward bend here. We're not going to take time for another yin pose. So if you need to open the back body, do it now. And then to finish, I want to do another one of the bone bouncing techniques. Same thing we did yesterday. So from here, and the idea is that this gives us a serotonin boost, this bone bouncing technique. So with arms to the sky, lift and drop your shoulders, lift and drop, lift and drop, lift and drop. And then elbows. And hands. Maybe the full arms. And then your pelvis, lift and drop the pelvis, lift and drop the pelvis. Just sort of slam or thump. Slam's a hard word, but thump the sacrum on the floor. And then legs long and then bounce. Bang and bounce the heels, bang and bounce the bones. And maybe add the arms for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and 4, and 3, and 2, and 1. Do nothing here and feel Ooh, feel the tingle, the flutter, the flushing, the sparkles. And simply continue to exhale yourself into rest. Exhale yourself into softness. If you stopped listening to the conversation with the cells, go back in, lean your ear in like you're eavesdropping on a sacred conversation. The cells are all responding to the movement, to the stimulus package you just offered them. And see if you can allow yourself to be held. And free falling into your true nature. And following your energetic center of gravity down. And may this carry you through your day. May it carry you through to your deepest, most loving being, and may you share that at a safe distance with everyone you encounter, which is hopefully not that many people. Thank you. I love you. See you tomorrow.